So how much longer is this going to keep happening to Detroit? And better question, how much longer are the fans and the team and the organization going to have to keep taking the high road when it seems like officials just can't get things right? Let's talk about that and a whole lot more in this video, starting right now. What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Pride Detroit YouTube channel. I'm Meko, and in today's video, we are going to be recapping the Lions game versus the Dallas Cowboys that took place last night, where we saw the Lions come up short in a 20-19 loss to the Cowboys. This now leaves both the Cowboys and the Lions both sitting at 11-5 on the season, and with the Lions more than likely being firmly slotted into the number 3 seed once the playoffs start. And listen, we're not going to take a lot of time in this video. We're not going to beat around the bush. We're going to get right to the meat and potatoes of this game. But before I jump into, again, talking about officiating and talking about my viewpoints on it and just overall how I'm feeling and why I think the officials should be held to a higher standard, I do want to make you guys aware that later in this video, we are going to actually still analyze this game and talk about some of the things that I do think went wrong with this team to find themselves in this position. Not saying that they didn't play well enough to win, because they absolutely did, but I do think there were some tangible things that took place in that game prior to that final drive and prior to that 2-point conversion that could have helped the Lions, if they had executed better, be in a much better position at the end of that game. But with that said, let's start at the very top, or at least start with the thing that everyone is talking about, and that being the blown call, or at least that's how I'm going to describe it, because it's a mistake. It's not, that penalty should have never been called. From everything that we have seen, every bit of information that has been gathered, what we do know is that Taylor Decker went to Brad Allen, the head official, reported as eligible before they ran their 2-point conversion. Dan Skipper was coming in to play tackle next to Penei Sewell, and was not, or at least from what we've been told, did not report as eligible, according to him, according to Taylor Decker, according to everyone on the Lions side of the sideline, did not report as eligible. But for whatever reason, Brad Allen went ahead and called out that number 70, who was Dan Skipper, was eligible, and that number 68, Taylor Decker, was basically downfield illegally and should not have been able to catch or receive that pass, thus leading to the penalty, thus leading to a few more, tries at getting that 2-point conversion, none of which were successful. Now, the best and easiest way that I can basically convey my thoughts and my feelings on this is that this is BS, right? We have seen enough video evidence. We've heard from enough of the players to see that, first and foremost, Taylor Decker absolutely did go up to Brad Allen. What did actually, obviously us not having audio, but it does appear as though he goes up to Brad Allen to report as eligible. We see video evidence that Jared Goff sent him over there to report as eligible. So from everything that we can see from the Lions' perspective, they did what they were supposed to. We also got insight from Dan Campbell that as the head coach, he went over this play with the officials ahead of schedule, or ahead of the game, so that they were aware of what the Lions may be looking to do at some point in the game, so that this type of thing would not happen. And apparently that is common practice based off of a number of other head coaches or former head coaches giving their input on this situation. Rex Ryan talked about this. Herm Edwards has talked about this. We've seen other head coaches that say that, yes, this is normal practice to sit down with the officials, to make them aware of certain trick plays or things that you're looking to implement in the game to make sure that you're within the rules. So this is where Dan Campbell's frustration comes in, and obviously a lot of the players as well, because when you are doing everything within your power to make sure that your team is in the right, it's a really crappy feeling, and it's really frustrating when things don't go your way and people act as if they didn't know that this type of thing was coming when you've done everything that you possibly can. Now, outside of, again, that part of it, there's also the frustration that is coming along with Brad Allen basically doubling down and saying that, listen, number 68 never reported as eligible, which, again, like I said, based off of everything we've seen multiple angles from this game to show that not to be the case. And that is equally frustrating because it's one thing, again, to make a mistake and get a play wrong, because we know that happens. It happens every single, football game that takes place on Saturdays and Sundays. It's going to happen again in today's games and some of these other officials where they're going to call the wrong player's number or they're going to attribute a penalty to the wrong player. That happens. What is frustrating, though, is to say that as if it never occurred or as if a player never did their due diligence, which is just not fair, and it's not right to Taylor Decker to make it seem as though he did not do what he was supposed to do. And even he in his post-game press conference was saying, or and even he said in his post-game conference with the media that, listen, I did everything I was supposed to do. I did everything the coach asked me to do. I don't know what happened in that whole exchange between him and Brad Allen. But what seems to be the consensus, or at least what seems to be the most plausible explanation for what went wrong in this game, is that Taylor Decker absolutely went up to Brad Allen with Penei Sewell, with Dan Skipper coming onto the field, and reported as eligible. Brad Allen acknowledged that Taylor Decker was identifying himself as eligible, but somewhere between him going to talk to the defense or him going to report it out over the mic, he got 68 and 70 mixed up. And like I said, that is so common in the NFL, it's not even funny. The number of times you will hear guys get called for holding that, and it's the wrong number. They call out numbers of guys who aren't even on the field, that aren't even on the team. That happens. The thing that's frustrating is for Brad Allen, like I said, to then go out in his press conference or when he's meeting with the media and say, no, number 68 never reported as eligible, when we know that that's not true. So what happens after this? What we're already kind of hearing is that, listen, Brad Allen and his crew are probably going to be downgraded and they're probably not going to be able to officiate any postseason games, which, hey, okay, that's probably the most likely and most expected outcome due to the fact that him and his crew have had multiple mistakes throughout this NFL season with other blown calls as well. But is that really enough? And I know for myself personally, and I'm sure for a lot of you guys watching, it doesn't feel like it's going to be enough. Them being fined isn't going to be enough. I'm not going to wish for anybody to lose their job because, listen, it's hard enough getting work out here. But there does need to be some level of accountability. But at the same time, like I said at the beginning of this video, as fans and as players and as an organization, I don't know what an apology does for us. I don't know why we should have to feel like we should have to take the high road and just look at this solely from a standpoint of, you know what, we should have played better. And it's not something that I'm super like happy or proud about, but I am at least, it was encouraging to see Dan Campbell get frustrated in his post-game press conference. It was nice to see that he wasn't just going to take this lying down, because he knows that he did everything that he should have done in that situation. He knows his players did everything they were supposed to do in that situation. And he knows that in that moment, his team was robbed of an opportunity to win a football game. And so I know what we all kind of probably have a general idea of what the NFL is going to do in this situation. They're going to issue an apology. They're going to say that they got it wrong. They're going to probably list out all the other plays that they got wrong as well and just say, hey, this is just chalk it up to human error. But that doesn't help the Lions. It doesn't. It doesn't give them back that opportunity to have the 2 seed. It doesn't give them that opportunity to potentially have gotten the 1 seed. Now they are, again, firmly somewhat locked into the 3rd seed. And so if they win their first playoff, game this upcoming season, whoever that matchup is against, instead of them having 2 games at home, they are now going to have to go on the road. And we all know when it comes to postseason play, that matters. And I know there's going to be some of you that may sit there and be like, well, Meko, they had the division locked up. They're going to the playoffs. Isn't that enough? It is. In the grand scheme of this season, it's enough. The Lions did everything that we thought they needed to do and more to be in a position to win the division and get into the playoffs. And the fact that they were able to do that is a huge hat tip to them. But you can't tell me that after watching that game and watching how you thought it was going to end before you saw that flag, that this team was also going above and beyond what we expected. It's one thing to get into the playoffs. It's another thing to get into the playoffs with a 2 seed. And so to have that opportunity taken away from them when, like I said, it just kind of felt like, no, did they play the perfect game? Absolutely not. But they played well enough to win that game. to get the ball back with 1 minute and 41 seconds, with no timeouts, with Jared Goff playing one of the most up and down games that he's played this season, for him to galvanize that group, march down the field, not turn the football over, not take bad, sacks or anything like that, and to find Amon-Ra St. Brown on an 11-yard touchdown pass is incredible. And this team should have had their opportunity to win that game, and they did. And that's the other part of this that's frustrating, because I know that some people are going to say, like, why are we complaining about officiating? It's not like we're complaining about a holding call that wasn't really holding, or a pass interference call that's up for interpretation. We're talking about a rule being blatantly called wrong, flat out wrong. And you had converted a play that would have had you winning that football game, and it was taken from you. And so it's not as easy to just look at this and be like, you know what? You got to play better so that officiating doesn't impact the game. That's true, 100% true. But it just doesn't sit the same way, considering the type of play that was, the type of a penalty that was called on you. So I'm obviously, as you guys can see, I'm frustrated, and I'm sure a lot of you are still frustrated, and I'm probably going to be frustrated maybe for another day or two. Hopefully by the time Morgan and I get together to do film studies, we'll be in a better mood, right? But as of right now, yeah, it's frustrating. But at the same time, the Lions did something that's also very important that I don't want to have overlooked in this game, and a lot of things, actually. First and foremost, they proved that they could hang with one of the other top teams in the NFC. Because I know there were people even going into this game, and I'm sure there's going to be some detractors that were going to say, like, well, hey, who have the Lions beat? Right? They beat a lot of teams that are probably not going to be in the playoffs or that have sub 500 records. Well, when they had an opportunity to play one of the other best teams in the NFL, they hung. Yes, CeeDee Lamb went off. Absolutely. What about the rest of that offense, though? Right? Running game nullified. You got 2 turnovers to help balance the scales of the 2 turnovers that you gave away. Aiden Hutchinson had the game of the season, in my opinion. When the Lions needed him most, he was there, picking up 3 sacks, constantly turning that pressure that he's been generating all season into actual negative plays for the Dallas Cowboys. There was enough plays being made by this Lions team for them to be in that situation to do what they did at the end of the game. And they executed it. So, yes, I'm frustrated. You're going to be frustrated. We'll get through this together. I promise you guys. We'll get through this together, because, again, I don't want us to lose track of what this team has accomplished. They hung with one of the best teams in the NFL. They saw some of their star players, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Aiden Hutchinson, Jared Goff on that final drive, really come alive and prove that they can, carry the weight of this team in key moments and help them be in contention to win games. And that's what you want to see from a team that's going to be, going into the playoffs, and that you're going to have an opportunity, no matter what anybody thinks, you will have an opportunity to march towards a Super Bowl. So with that said, you guys know how I feel about the officiating. You know how I feel about this opportunity and what I think in regards to, just how unfair it is to this Lions team. I do want to take a step back. I want to bottle up my emotions again, put them to the side, and let's talk about just what happened on the field. Because there's going to be a couple narratives coming out about this game, and there's some that I just don't agree with. Let's start with the first one. And there's anyone that's out here talking about Aaron Glenn needs to be fired after this game can go kick rocks. I'm tired of it. I am. I get it. CeeDee Lamb had an amazing game. He had a record-setting game for the Cowboys. Hats off to him. But like I said earlier, what did the rest of that offense do? Your best pass rusher got to the quarterback. Your backup safety got another interception. Outside of another touchdown pass, a touchdown pass to Brandon Cooks, the only other touchdown that came in this game was at the result of Derek Barnes failing to basically tackle Dak Prescott and generate a safety. Outside of that, a team that has been scoring 40 points on average at home was held to 20. And you're telling me that you want to fire the defensive coordinator after this game? Oh, no, it's not this game. It's also the fact that you also gave up a lot of yards to Justin Jefferson, too. And I will go back to that game. Who else hurt you? Because that defense created turnovers in that game. That defense got pressure and got sacks. This defense has been playing better since the bye week, and it feels like not enough people are acknowledging that just because the Lions lose games. Guess what? Some of those losses have come at the cost of the Lions offense not playing well enough. And that's the other part of this game is that, listen, as much praise as I'm going to give Jared Goff on what he did in that last drive, he did not look good for most of that game. And a lot of that is on him, but another good portion of it is on this offensive line, because there's a common theme when it comes to Jared Goff. When that offensive line plays great, when he's able to go through his processes, he's not having to rush, he typically makes good passes. They're typically on target. They're typically, with the proper velocity, all of those things. Everything typically goes right in the passing game when that offensive line is protecting well. But this offensive line was not doing that yesterday. They struggled in pass protection. They struggled in generating, rushing lanes for both Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. And I know they still rushed for over 100 yards. They ran the ball 31 times. But the number of times where guys whiffed on blocks or were late on their pulls or whatever the case may be is a huge issue for this offense. Because again, if the defense is going to play that well, the very least that this offense needs to do is they need to be able to get 21 points. Like, that's what we're talking about in this situation. We're talking about 21 points. And Jared Goff was only able to throw one touchdown pass. David Montgomery was able to get another touchdown. But outside of that, you had 2 interceptions. Good plays by the Dallas Cowboys, especially on the screen. But it kind of goes hand in hand with why this team struggled. And it puts you in a situation like Dan Campbell has said in previous games. You put yourself in situations where now the officials can get involved. And that's not what you want as a team. So as much as we can blame and hold the refs accountable, because they absolutely should be, we also do at another time, because I'm not expecting anybody to do it today. But listen, you got to hold your team accountable. You got to hold your offense accountable. Your best unit on your team, your offensive line, not performing at their very best. Possibly your best coordinator in Ben Johnson, maybe not calling the best game. Right? Because I know there were a lot of people in that first half that were really upset with the delayed handoffs and some of the, delayed plays that instead of just attacking the Dallas Cowboys and instead letting them attack you with their speed and athleticism, there is definitely a gripe for that. And listen, there's a little bit of a chicken, which came first, be the chicken or the egg type of conversation, because it's a question of, did Ben Johnson call bad plays, or were the offensive line just not blocking well enough and therefore the plays looking bad? I don't know. I know I tend to lean more towards the side of like the players need to execute, but I can definitely understand anybody that's going to sit here and say, listen, Ben Johnson needs to call a better game. But when you kind of combine those two things, right, the poor execution and the poor play by the offensive side of the football with the late terrible call by Brad Allen's staff, this is the result you get, and it sucks. It really, really does. And I don't know when and how I'm going to get over it. I'm sure I will. The best thing that could possibly help any of us get over it is the Lions to, welcome the Minnesota Vikings next week and just roll them up and march into the playoffs. That would be great. But in order for that to happen, the Lions are going to have to clean up some things on the offensive side of the football. They absolutely are. So it's a lot, right? It's a lot coming out of this game. There's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of things to take a look at, both from the officiating side, from what the Lions were doing, for some of the things that the Cowboys were doing. And hopefully as the coming days kind of go by, everything will kind of settle and we'll be able to look at this game with fresher eyes and with a different perspective. But as of right now, listen, the Lions are sitting at 11-5. It's still been a successful season. They have the opportunity to go to 12-5 next week against the Minnesota Vikings. And I believe it was Michael Strahan who said the following in regards to this type of game being the thing that could light a spark under this team, right? Going into Minnesota, going into the playoffs, knowing that, you are still being overlooked. You are still being, seen as just the same old Lions type of thing. And I hate to use that phrase, but that some officials or some other teams are going to still look at you that way. Use that as a chip to go into this postseason and show everybody why this is a new team. Why, like Taylor Decker said last week, why everyone in the NFL needs to respect you and to fear you. The Lions have had a great season, guys. And I don't want us to lose sight of that just for the simple fact that they got screwed over once again. So, with all that said, I want to hear from you guys. Jump into the comment section below. Let me know what your overall thoughts are from the game. Air out your frustrations. Go crazy. Let me know how frustrated you are, whether it's with the officials, whether it's with the team, whether it's with anything. If you want to just jump in the comment section and say you hate the Cowboys, do that. Want to hear from you guys. Also, be sure to check out PrideDetroit.com if you're looking for any more feedback or any more insight on the Detroit Lions or that Dallas Cowboys game. And like always, be sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell. That way you can be notified every time we upload brand new content over here at the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. So with all that said, I'm Meko. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch, and I'll see you guys in the next one.